Hey, welcome back. My name is Frank Enstein, and my puppy over here is LL Jewel J. Today we're discussing Season 2, Episode 1, Brown's Out of Hiding. Episode description says Kody and his wives appear on national TV for the first time as open polygamists. All right, let's get into it. Welcome to the podcast, Sister Lives, a red flag rewatch. This is the podcast for disenchanted fans of Sister Wives. Fans who fell in love with the Brown family, watched their precious kids grow up, and became enchanted with all the love, only to be told it was all a lie. Nothing was as it seemed. We were bamboozled, fooled, duped, tricked, conned, swindled, hoodwinked. What did we miss? Where did it go wrong? Come help me find out as we watch from the beginning. I watched almost all of the season 2 episodes. They were relatively short. A lot of them are only 22 minutes. And I'm starting to see why I really liked this show. Kody was actually semi-okay in these shows. You could tell that he cared about his kids and he cared about their feelings. And he was a good dad in this season, I thought, in season 2. And actually, Robyn was okay. She was kind of lazy. She never got a job. She never did anything like that. But you could see her talking to the kids and the kids talking to her, and they did have a little bit of a relationship together. I really did like this family, and season 2 had a lot to do with it because I did truly see some good family dynamics going on there. Now we know that maybe it wasn't as happy-go-lucky as they tried to appear to be, but you do see that they did have relationships that were actually pretty good. Kody and Robyn and the rest of the kids. And I think what changed here in season 2 is all about them deciding to move and finding a place to go is they got down to Las Vegas and they got separated and they got money. And I think this is where the dynamics starts to change a little bit. But it is very interesting. I enjoyed watching the season over again. I do think that things have changed a lot since that started. But it's hard to see that where they are now and where they were, where they were. You see the kids playing together and they're doing so good and they're so cute. I just love these kids. But anyway, it starts out Kody's washing the dishes, and I'm wondering if he ever really washed his dishes if there's not cameras around because he seems to be doing that a lot. When the cameras are going on, he's washing dishes. But Brianna calls herself a pliglet, and polygamy speech for a child of polygamists. But Kody says, "You're just a little girl. You can't call yourself a pliglet. The adults in the family are polygamists." And he says the kids joke about themselves being pliglets. These are regular kids just like anybody else's kids. And he says there's a lot going on in our lives. It's the beginning of September, and now the kids are going to go to public school. And Christine says this is the first time in public school for like half of them, if I'm counting right. 7 of the kids have never been to public school before. It makes you wonder why they're starting now going to public school. And I guess it may have a lot to do with they're coming out to the public, so they're trying to get their kids to come out to the public, or they're kind of pulling their kids into this. And their kids have always been in the private polygamous school. So that's a lot to put on a kid. And we find out later in the episode that Leon stays in the private school. And that may have a lot to do with the fact that the private school that they're going to is run by one of Meri's mothers. And then part of me wonders if maybe they're going to public school because Robyn's kids are going to public school. I'm thinking that maybe Robyn is insisting on going to public school because Dayton has Asperger's, and children with autism and Asperger's get what is called an IEP, which is an individualized education plan where they get special resources, they get therapists, they get people that work with them specifically. And I'm wondering if maybe she's not using that and saying that he has to go to public school, which I could understand that because they're not going to offer all of that at a private polygamous school. So I'm wondering if maybe because her kids are going, if that's one of the reasons why all the other kids need to go. But there's no telling. I don't know how the kids feel about it because they don't really ask them how they're feeling about it. The only person who talks about it is Leon. She doesn't go. And Kody says, we're going to New York City, basically going on the news to be public about our lifestyle. And Meri says, we're going to be on the Today Show, and that will be interesting, and I have no idea what to expect. Kody says, we're coming out to our friends, and we're coming out to the world. Janelle says, we're we're going to talk to the younger kids about going to public school and the fact that it's going to be obvious that their brothers and sisters are in the same class. And Kody says, all of our kids seem to want to be in public school. And Meri says, except Mariah, she didn't. She didn't want to go to public school this year. She tried public school and just decided she didn't like it and preferred being in private school. And I've talked to y'all before about what Dr. Adams said that maybe in public school that Leon was not in their protective bubble, that they were in polygamist private school. In private school, you're constantly being bombarded with the word of God and the Bible and all this other stuff. So it may have been easier for them to go to private school to not have to inwardly reflect on their feelings, if that makes any sense. But anyway, I noticed all through this that Kody is a little annoying on the couch with the wives. If you notice, anytime any of the wives have something relevant or good to say or a good point, he will talk right over them. Like he'll just take advantage of the fact that they're saying something good and he'll just say it right behind them and he'll repeat them and he'll just talk right over them. He's just like a little kid through this whole interview. The wives can't get out a good thought before he stops them and just expands on it. He's a little annoying in this episode. Kody says, we would have done this earlier, possibly, but we didn't feel like the time was right and we didn't feel like the kids were ready. And they've got all the kids in the living room, and Christine says, we're having you here tonight because you're starting public school. And there's just a few things that we would like to talk to you about. Kody says, I kind of feel like putting them in public school is a part of our coming out. Janelle says, well, I don't know, but for me, ultimately, we didn't put them in the private school to hide. I think we started out in homeschool, and then we moved to the private school. And I did worry about public school because I was worried about the influences they would be introduced to. I don't know if we would make this decision if we lived somewhere else because the schools in our area are high quality. And Robyn says, she's talking to the kids and she says, we have something that's kind of different in our family. What's different in our family? She says, we're polygamous. So now we're going to go to school and people are going to know, right? They're going to know and they're not going to have the same lifestyle. And Meri says, I think for the most part, kids nowadays are pretty open-minded. And Kody says, kids are being taught tolerance at school now. And I remember growing up in school and being taught the value of civil rights and the value of tolerance. And Janelle says, I'm grateful for that. Christine says, I feel different about the kids, though. I always put my kids in private school. And part of it was because when I was going to school, I was okay, but my brothers and sisters were picked on and bullied. It wasn't known that I was a polygamist, but it was known that they were. So I didn't want any of my kids in the public school system. Because of that, I'm nervous that they'll get teased. But what I'm nervous about more is that'll stop them from making friends. Janelle says, I'm actually kind of excited. I was a little bit hesitant at first because my little babies, I didn't know how they'll be. Once I met the school principal and stuff, then Kody interrupts her and says, yep, having met the principal and some of the teachers, I'm very impressed. I'm very excited for the kids. And you see Kody running around. It's the next morning. He's running around waking up kids. And Christine, she says, we started curling Aspen's hair at 5 o'clock this morning, and now it's 6:20. So they have been curling Aspen's hair for an hour and 20 minutes. It's a labor of love. And this reminded me so much of when my daughter started the first day of junior high. We were all just nervous because when you start junior high, that's hard. You go from this nice little fun elementary school class of people you've been around with since kindergarten to this bigger school where you're just kind of put in the class with a bunch of kids you don't know. And one of the ways I felt like that I could help her was just to make her feel good, like curl her hair. And so I remember that morning, just like Christine is doing with Aspen here, is, combing her hair out and curling it and giving her a little makeup and just trying to make her feel good. You know what I mean? There's a lot to be said when you clean up real good and you're looking your best. And, just giving her the best chance of going into school and the first day of junior high, just knowing that she looks good and she feels good, that maybe her day will be a little bit easier. It was interesting. I did like seeing that because it reminded me so much of my daughter, getting her ready. I doubt Christine is going to do this every morning, but a lot of it has to do with it's the first day of school and you're curling your kid's hair. And that gives you time to talk to them. And you can say, well, what exactly is bothering you? What are you most worried about? Just talk through that and get it out there and get it to where when they're looking in the mirror, they feel good about themselves. That just does so much more than just rolling out of bed and walking into school. You're just giving them the best chance possible. And I could totally understand why she was doing that. And this is so sweet. I have told y'all how much I love Savannah in these early years. She is just so stinking cute. But Hayden says, "What grade are you in?" And Savannah goes, "6th grade." Isabel says, "Nope, you're in kindergarten." And Savannah goes, "Oh, yeah." I guess because Savannah's 6 years old, she thought she was in 6th grade, but that was so sweet. Logan says he's not looking forward to school. I hate that for him. And Janelle says, "We have a little bit of change this year. Christine will be home more than she was last year because she has Truly. She'll be starting to do some of the breakfast for my kids," which makes me wonder the fact that Logan was taking care of Janelle's kids every morning and making them breakfast every morning. We've called him Daddy Logan since then because of that, because he took care of all the kids. So I'm wondering, once they got on TV and they heard everybody talking about how that was semi-ridiculous because there was other mothers in the house, especially Meri. She could have done it. What was she doing? And Kody could have helped with that, and they were putting it all on Logan. I'm wondering if that's not why they're bringing up the fact that Christine is now going to be the one to make breakfast for Janelle's kids, but it didn't really work out because the breakfast that Christine made was still kind of raw, so they weren't able to eat it anyway. So they would have been better if Logan had been making breakfast. But anyway, they don't talk about it a lot, but Christine worked. She talks about how she was the stay-at-home mom, but she did a lot of night jobs. I know for a fact that she worked at a museum. I know that she worked for the census company making phone calls. She had a lot of little odd jobs. And I think because in this family, they don't talk about it a lot. I think a lot of the family was responsible for their own stuff. If you wanted any extra money or if you wanted anything for anything, then the moms had to work for that. All of Mary's money went to Leon, but if Christine wanted any extra spending money, she had to go make it, which is why she was doing all these little odd jobs. And she was pregnant with Truly. She was saying that she was trying to pay off her bills before she had Truly. And Christine, they don't talk about it, but she worked a lot. Because remember, she had asked Kody if he would help put the kids to bed while she was at work. And he said, no, Aspen could do it. And at the time, Aspen was 10 years old. So, I mean, there was a lot of extra working going on Christine's part that she does not get credit for. I mean, she was a stay-at-home mom, which is a big job in itself, but she was doing other stuff just to get a little extra money, you know? I don't think that people give her credit for that. And it makes Robyn look really bad in this whole season because she's like, well, I couldn't find a job. Well, Christine found a job and she was 9 months pregnant, had 5 kids and was taking care of other kids in the family. And she found a job. Why can't your lazy ass find a job? Because Robyn wasn't really looking. So this really makes Robyn look bad. But Christine was really doing a lot. It shows Christine, she made some kind of breakfast cake and it's just not actually done. She says, I'm a little stressed out and I'll be stressed out probably for a couple of days until I get used to the routine. So now she's in charge of breakfast. And Christine is over at the table and she's messing with school supplies and she's messing with breakfast. She's doing all this stuff. And Kody says, Christine, I'm leaving. And Christine doesn't say something right away. He says, Christine, you're supposed to come over and hug me when I say I'm leaving. You're supposed to drop everything and come running to me. And he's laughing, but I think he's serious. Like he really wants her to pay attention when he's talking. He says, I'm leaving. But the next few scenes, he goes right over to Robyn's house. Robyn's kids are not getting ready or nothing. They're standing around the kitchen in their pajamas, but you see him go over to Robyn's house. Kody said, we homeschooled our kids for a lot of years, and I think that experience actually melded the family. And then when Robyn was coming in the family, I thought it was a very good way by having them all go to public school together. Robyn was a factor for all those kids going to public school. All right, today is Aurora and Brianna and Dayton's first day back at school. I mean, that's exciting. That's fun. What's more important about that is the first day of school now since Kody and I are married. Since now they are polygamous children, they're going to school, public school with their brothers and sisters. My kids have never talked about this and never addressed this with their friends and with their teachers. And so this was the first time they were ever saying, look, these are my brothers and sisters. I'm from a polygamous family. But I was nervous because when I was a child, I was in public school. I kept a secret for all those years. So for me, my kids going to public school and being out there where I hadn't my whole life, it was like, okay, we can do this. And we're still waking the kids up with cameras in their faces. That is such a rude way to be woken up. I mean, like, would you want to wake up with the camera right in your face? You're just so disoriented. That's not cool. Kody's looking around. He says, you guys just woke up. because they're not ready or nothing. They're just standing there in their pajamas. And Robyn says, being in my own house away from the main house or the big house, I feel disconnected sometimes. One of the things that I really loved about the family was the fact that Kody had access to wives and the kids at all times. He was going up and down the stairs and checking on everybody and seeing how everybody was doing. I really like this idea. And so, yeah, being over in my own house, the kids and I aren't a part of that. And so this is where I have a huge question that she's saying that she misses the fact that they're not all in the big house with the rest of the family. Why? Okay, so Robyn's got her own rental house. Why didn't they move Meri into a rental house? Wouldn't that have made more sense? Don't you think? Meri and Leon could have moved into that rental house and Robyn could have moved into Meri's spot and she would have been there with all the kids. I would think that Meri would be happier in a spot by herself because one of her biggest problems was that she didn't like a bunch of kids running in and out of her house. She should have gotten the rental. Why didn't they get Meri the rental? Move Meri into that rental and then move Robyn into Meri's part. So if she really was like, I don't like the fact that all my kids aren't together and that Kody's not checking on us all the time. Why didn't she move into that big house and Meri move into the rental house? That totally would have been a lot better. She says things like the kids and I aren't a part of that. That makes me so sad. I don't think she's sad. I think she wanted that rental house. She wanted to be away and she wanted to be completely separate from the rest of the family. I don't believe her at all about this. At all. At all. And Kody says, I actually like the one house for everybody because it gives a stronger family identity. And Janelle says, yeah, I agree. And Kody says, the merger of Robyn's children will actually be a better experience, I think, with all of us in the same house. And Dayton says that he's excited about school. He says he's not nervous. And Aurora says, I'm a little bit nervous. I might lose friends. Aurora, she's already worried she might lose friends. Who told her that? Who put that idea in her head? You don't have that many friends yet. Your first day of school, you're going to make friends. Why are they scaring that child? Why would you tell her that she might lose friends? Poor Aurora. Just making that kid scared. Robyn says, Dayton made a comment yesterday when we were at school. The teacher said, write things down about yourself. And Dayton goes, I'm from a polygamous family. Robyn said, I was in the classroom and I went like this, like even though we're all introducing ourselves, it still kind of froze because I was like, who heard that? Is it going to be okay? Is it going to be something the kids are weird with? But it was all right. And it shows Christine taking pictures of the kids out in the street before they catch the bus. Two kids are not from the family. They're out there too. And Peyton is walking around holding Truly. And the kids get on the bus and it looks like Truly and Savannah are the only ones left behind. And in some states, I know that kindergarten starts a little later, like kindergarten's only like a half-day program. So that may be, or she may still be homeschooling Savannah. I don't know. And Christine says, so at the school, you have to fill out the emergency contact information. Well, I always put Meri and Janelle on my forms because it's like the name, phone number, and then how they're related. I've always left it blank, or I put mom's friend or things like that. I put other mom on. This is extremely liberating. And the whole time she's talking, there's kids in the background and they're singing, which I like that. And Janelle says, I'm actually not going to change the way I fill mine out. I've always listed Christine and Meri and now Robyn as aunts because that's what's traditionally done. And she's right. On Notes to Self, Melanie, she's the prophet's daughter. She says that's traditionally what's done is the other moms are listed as aunts. So basically sisters of the mom. And that's just how they do it. That's just always how it's been. And I'm kind of with Janelle on that. It's like, this is just a piece of paper that tells the school who to call in case of emergency. We're not going to make this our hill to die on. You know what I mean? Like, this is not where we're going to make our stand about polygamy on these school emergency form contact papers. So she's like, yeah, just put aunt and be done with it. Why are we being so dramatic? And Kody looks at Janelle and says, really? So that tells you that he has never filled a school contact paper in his life because he had no idea what Janelle was putting for all these years. And Christine mimics a knife to her chest and says, I am not their aunt. And I'm with Janelle. It's like, let's just not make this dramatic. It's just a piece of paper that tells the school who to call. They're going to call you no matter what it says. Kody says, to me, that feels like all these years that the other polygamists hiding in society had to say, oh, that's my uncle. And Janelle says, I don't really care because I'm just giving him permission to take him out of school. So I don't feel like I need to say, I'm going to just tell you now, flaunt this. I'm not filling mine out any different than I have in the past years. And that's what I've always liked about Janelle. She's very practical. It shows Christine, it's just her and Truly. And Truly is now 5 months old. And she says, well, there's my baby. Where's my baby? And she's playing with Truly. And Truly probably doesn't know what to do with all this attention. She's not used to having this much of her mom by herself all the time. And Christine says she was so good today. The kids are going to come home soon, so I get to hear about their first day of school today. I'm only worrying somewhat. I don't know. They won't know what to say when someone asks them about their family, but our kids are pretty open. I have an empty house right now. It's just new to me. And Kody says it's crickets. And Janelle says, you get time to focus on Truly. I think it would be awesome. And Christine says, I'm completely bored out of my gourd. I am. I've always been busy, insane busy for years. Always been doing so many things. And so I've decided, after having Truly, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just not. I'm just going to be a mom and see what that feels like. She says, I'm hoping that the other school kids are going to treat our kids okay. I'm really glad that there's a lot of our kids going power in numbers. And so the kids are starting to trickle home, and there's Aspen. And she asks Aspen about school, and Aspen says, so my teacher, he's like way boring. And Logan comes in, and the first thing he says, you got any food? And Christine says, what'd you say? And she says, Logan comes over all the time looking for food. Janelle says, I go to Christine's to see if there's any food. This is true because Christine was kind of the touchstone for family meals. And she had made homemade hamburger buns, and Logan was very excited about that. Kody says, I go over to Christine's to see if there's any food. Janelle says, if I want a real meal after a whole week of working and eating sandwiches, I'm going to go see what's in Christine's house. Christine had made strudel for breakfast, and she says there's some of that left. And she says we had hamburgers for lunch, so there's some buns. And Logan's all excited about that. And Christine says, I love being a home mom. All through growing up, all I wanted to do was be a mom. You could see the little kids getting off the bus, and they're all running to Christine, and they're all hugging Christine. Gabe and Gwen both hugged Christine. And Christine said, how was your day? They really did like Christine. And Robyn, her kids are coming in. She says, who played with any of their brothers and sisters? Who did you play with? And they said, Gabe and Dayton. Robyn says, well, Brianna's like, I told my friend that we're polygamists, and the friend goes, great. And then they just kept playing. And she's so shocked by this, but kids don't care. Other kids don't care. You know what I mean? There's always that thing that they're going to public school now, and the kids are on TV, so they might have it a lot easier, because if these kids are on TV, then that means that the other kids at the school might be really nice to them because they're semi-celebrities. So it might be a little bit easier on them. And Christine says to Gabe, what'd you get? And Gabe says the teacher gave him a brownie for the first day of school. And it says on the brownie, my first day was a piece of cake. And Christine laughs and says, that's cute. Sounds like the teachers kind of care about him a little bit. And Kody says later on in the week, we're going to New York City to be on the Today Show. Earlier this week, we want to actually do something with the kids, so we're going to go ice blocking. Christine says ice blocking is where you get these big blocks of ice and you put a towel on top and you take them to the top of a steep hill, and then you sit and you ride the block down. And it shows them riding bags of ice down the hill. I wonder how the park felt about this, because I feel like that would tear up their grass. Don't you think? Anyway, so it shows all the kids going ice blocking. Robyn says our lifestyle, we have a lot of very high morals and different ethics and stuff. And so our kids find some very creative ways to have fun. Like this is some highly moral. She's so full of herself. Kody says it dates back to the 1800s. Fundamentalist Mormons are a little bit traditional. And Janelle says no. She says, because I do it. My church did it growing up, and she wasn't fundamentalist Mormon. Kody says, well, Joseph Smith talked about doing it. They just love him, so Joseph Smith. Janelle says there were some of our more old-fashioned ways that people used to have fun that have been kept alive in our community. Kody says, yeah, if they don't harm you, they don't harm others. And it shows them cooking hot dogs at the park. Kody says, we finished up ice blocking, gathered all the kids up to have a picnic, and this was the last day that we did something as a family before we flew to New York and announced to the world that we're polygamists. We're a little nervous about the consequences of coming out, but I think we have kind of set this path. We've already determined this is what we're going to do. The fundamentalist Mormon community and the polygamists have become secretive in such a way as to threaten the rest of America, even if it's in their minds. And so to be transparent, I believe, make us more safe to them. We're hoping that other fundamentalist Mormon polygamists will actually follow our example by opening their lives up, and eventually we can become an open community instead of a closed community. Christine says, people are good. People are open-minded, so much more than we would assume. That's just what I see. I think people are great, and I think people's minds are exactly where they need to be for us to be able to say, hey, this is our family, and you're going to find things that are really great about us. And it says it's about 6:45 in the morning, and Christine says, all the adults are leaving for New York today. We're kind of saying, hello, America. Here we are. And he's walking around looking for Meri because he can't find a pair of socks, which, my husband, maybe I'm just lucky because my husband does his own laundry. We've got separate laundry baskets, and he will do his own laundry. He washes it and dries it, and sometimes I'll hang stuff up. And if it's still there after a while, I'll do it. Sometimes he basically has things that he wears to work. He keeps up with it, and he keeps them clean and ready to go. So I can't imagine if my husband came up to me asking me where a pair of socks was. I'd be like, I don't know. Wherever you put them, I don't know where they are. So I think I'm pretty lucky. I'm going to tell him that tonight. I'm so lucky to have that guy. I'm glad he's not anything like Kody. And he says, we're missing a pair of socks. I can't find Meri. I can't find her anywhere. He says, we're going public to America, and we're going to do that today. We're all very excited. And Maddie says they're announcing to the world that they're polygamists, and it's pretty scary. We don't know how they're going to take us. And Meri says it's a little bit nerve-wracking, I suppose. It's just a big unknown. And Kody is just flushed. He's hurried. He's semi-panicked, and he says, tomorrow I'm going to be all over the news announcing to the world that I'm essentially a polygamist coming out. Like he's just now realizing that he's doing this. He's so manic, the way he moves and the way he does things. And poor Logan, he says, right now we're to the point where we decide if we get pushed off the cliff or do we jump, and I guess we're jumping. And the way he says, I guess we're jumping, it's like, it just tells you right there, the kids didn't really have a choice about all this. If he would have said, no, I don't want to do this, they would have done it anyway. So he's basically being pushed off the cliff, not just jumping off of it. And Janelle says, we're coming to this point where it's like, okay, we really are going to do this. We're going to cross this line that we've talked about for months and months, and we'll see what happens. Are the black hole of what's going to be waiting for us is scarier, I think, than what the actual experience will be. And you see Kody on Notes to Self, she says, he's got this Ziploc bag with white fabric in it. She goes, that's his garments. And you're not supposed to show the public your garments. So you can see him holding the Ziploc bag with white fabric in it, and he's covering it up real quick. Like he puts it in his bag and then he covers it up real quick. So Kody must wear garments. You know what I mean? Or maybe he just did for the interview, but I don't know. That was very interesting that Melanie caught that he had this plastic bag with white fabric in it. She said, that's his garments. And he puts them in his bag and he covers them up real quick. Kody goes, the reason I packed in Meri's living room is because I've got stuff in the whole house. I've got to go everywhere to get my stuff, so I'm just centralized. I gather stuff from Christine's, from Janelle's, from Meri's, and I brought it all into our living room, and then I've stuffed it all in. Nobody feels sorry for me having to go everywhere to get my stuff. Meri's living room is almost dead center. That's the reason I'm here. And he says this a lot. His stuff is all over the house, but he's here because this is the center. And why didn't he just keep all his clothes in Meri's closet? It's just her clothes, and she's only got one child. Why didn't he just keep all his clothes there? And then you see Cheryl, which is Janelle's mother. She's there. She's going to help watch the kids. And he says, she's going to watch the kids while we're in New York. Janelle says, I know that my mom's coming to watch the kids. We have older kids who can help with the younger kids. We have a troop of grandmas. That's the greatest thing about our worlds. We have a lot of grandmas. And Truly's kind of fussy. And poor Christine, she's like, I'm leaving Truly at home. This is my first time to be separated from her. I'm really having a hard time leaving her. She says she's teething, and you can kind of tell because Truly's kind of gnawing on that nipple of that bottle. She's not really sucking on it. She's just gnawing on it. That's a lot what teething babies do. When babies are teething, their noses run and they cough, and it's just kind of a miserable time. Their gums are swollen, they have a little bit of a fever, and they're just grumpy. So it seems like every time Christine leaves the house, Truly decides to get sick. Poor Christine. And Christine says she's teething and she was coughing last night, and I'm like, what am I going to do? She says, it's a good thing my mom's coming out because I'm having a hard time. there's no way that I would leave her with Aspen and McKelty. That's too much, but they're still going to help. And all the sisters are going to help. And I'm sure that Mariah Leon is going to come help and just take care of her and make sure she's okay. And you see, it goes back to Kody, and he's still breathless and manic, and he's meticulous with his purple shirt, trying to fold it just right. He says, this is kind of one of those things I've always wanted to do all my life, just be more open about it, hopefully open up the mind of society. And, I'm nervous about that, nervous about the gazillion questions I'll get about the lifestyle. It's always unusual to come out and do something different than what's normal to everybody else and to stand up and be different. That makes me nervous. Robyn says, I've been so closed about my lifestyle and everything. It's it's free and it's liberating, but it's also very scary and it's a very foreign thing. I've sat here my whole life guarding everything I say and watching everything I do, that I do not give away these clues, but now I don't have to do that anymore. I don't have to. Janelle says the cat's out of the bag. Robyn says, I'm out there, for the whole world to see. Yes, this is me. Here I am. She says, there's a lot of bad media these days about plural marriage. Not everybody has child brides. Not everyone has welfare fraud and cheats on their insurance or taxes or abuses their kids. It goes over to McKelty, and McKelty is sitting there and she looks exhausted. And it looks like McKelty's going to take over for Robyn's kids. Where is Robyn's mom? Why don't we ever see Alice coming over and helping with Robyn's kids? Remember when Robyn was getting ready for her wedding and she was there by herself? I don't think she's very close with her sisters. I'm imagining that Robyn's mom is a lot like Robyn and doesn't really want to do a whole lot of work. So I imagine she's probably not going to be there watching Robyn's kids. And she says they usually take showers and baths, and then you just help them pick out their clothes, and then they eat breakfast and stuff. And she tells Dayton, I love you, buddy. I got to go. Okay, be safe. Love you. And this would be so much easier if Meri was in the rental and Robyn was in the big house, because Leon could have just took care of herself and went to school, and then the other people could have helped with Robyn's kids if she was in that big house. I don't know why they didn't do that. And Gabe is carrying Janelle's luggage. And this is the sweetest thing. I saw this and it brought a tear to my eye, but they're standing out in their driveway. And Gabe looks up at Janelle, and Janelle looks down at Gabe, and he smiles at her and she smiles at him. And they just kind of grin real big, like they have like this connection, like just kind of smile at each other. And he comes over and he hugs her and she hugs him back. And I don't know why that makes me want to cry. Isn't that crazy? But that was just such a sweet, I took a picture of it for my YouTube video, but that was so sweet. Like they have this sweet connection, and it makes me think of from then until now. And he still is ride or die for his mama. So I thought that was sweet. It was the best picture. Anyway, Janelle says, well, here I am ready. I'm a little nervous about this. Scary. I mean, we've had some public exposure, but now this is really big. This is national, everybody. The whole world's going to see us. It's a little scary. And Meri and Leon and Kody, and they're hugging Leon bye. And Cody's looking at his phone the whole time. And then it goes over to New York. And Kody is carrying, you notice through the whole thing, if you ever watch this show again, Robyn never carries her own luggage. Kody is carrying Robyn's stuff. And everybody else is carrying their own luggage. So Kody is carrying his luggage and Robyn's luggage. Robyn says, it was my first time in New York City. I mean, you see so many movies about it and everything. It's so big, so overwhelming. It was just so loud and noisy and wild. Kody says, yeah, she was just slackjaw the whole time. Kody says, who doesn't love New York? And Christine says, I love it. The energy of that place. I love it. Oh, yeah. And Kody says, I like New York. The people were cool. What an experience on the Today Show. And I bet you they have never been to New York. I've never been to New York. I'd probably be acting the same way. But Meri says that the Today Show, it was surreal. Christine says we were on the set for about 3 hours from start to finish. And they said during commercial breaks, we just had to sit on the couch. Meri says, so we're just sitting and waiting. And I've been drinking a lot of water that morning. So I just needed to go visit the ladies' room. And almost as soon as I got in there, banging on the door, Meri, hurry, you're about to go on. She says, so I ran in there with my pants unzipped. And I tried to see if her pants were unzipped, but you couldn't tell. Her shirt was covering her pants. Robyn was like, the whole interview with your pants unzipped. And Christine says, we're sitting there and suddenly I hear somebody calling out Christine, and I'm looking around and I'm thinking there must be somebody else named Christine here. And it's Meredith. And she's all, Christine. And I'm Meredith. She says, I know who you are. And she says, how's Truly doing? It's really weird that they're asking me how my daughter's doing. It's fantastically weird. It shows Kody they're about to go on and they're counting down. He's looking at his hands and he's turning his ring around on his finger so that it's pointing toward the camera. You could see him looking at it and making sure that when he holds his hands a certain way that his ring points toward the camera. It's just very superficial and very much like what Kody would do. And Kody says, I didn't know how to analyze myself at that point. I didn't want to. So you're there asking, what are you thinking? And I'm like, I don't want to think about it. It might freak me out. And you got to remember, I've jumped out of an airplane and I haven't opened my parachute yet. I don't know how it will work. At that point, it was intense. They're just introducing the Browns. Good morning to you all. Good morning. I'm going to say on the onset that this is the kind of lifestyle that most people would not embrace and certainly don't understand. So let me start with you. Kody did not come from a plural family as it is, and your dad was not originally a polygamist. So what led you down this path? What made you choose polygamy? And it just shows Kody, and he's just kind of staring there looking off. And he says that he paused. I tried to find the original video of this, but I don't think he paused for that long. He says, my brain and my mouth wouldn't connect. He's like, my name is Kody. He says, that's what I wanted to say. He just couldn't come up with the words right away. And then finally he says, shoot, it was just faith-based. It's just a part of a faith belief, and I followed through with it, and this is kind of where it landed. I think the thing about Kody is that he tends to wing things. I wonder how much he practiced before he started. Remember when Maddie asked him to officiate the wedding and he didn't even come up with what he was going to say until he got there? I'm wondering how much he practiced before this. Robyn says this is live TV. It's national TV. I've just become a public polygamist. My life is different. And Christine says, now there's no going back anymore. We made our decision a while ago, and each step gets us closer and closer. I guess we're doing it now. But now really there's no going back. We are now out there. And Kody says, we've jumped out of the airplane and we're free falling, and that's the experience. And that's where you look and you just say, I'm just going to trust my experience, my equipment, and I'm jumping out of the airplane. And Meri says, I think that what we're doing is a good thing because, we're a very solid family. And I think that it's good to show people that this lifestyle, you can have a solid family, you can have a happy family. Meri says, so I'm glad that we're showing that. And it shows they're on other shows while they're over there. And Christine is answering questions and she's doing very well. They're on Joy's show and she asks if she can be the fifth wife. And then it shows them in Central Park and Meri's taking pictures of everybody. Kody's asking, am I shorter than her? And I bet he asks this all the time. He didn't like to be in pictures where he's shorter than his wives. He wants to make sure that he's taller. I think Robyn is taller than Kody. They're kind of dissing on Christine here, and it kind of peeved me off a little bit. But Kody says Meri is a photographer, takes great pictures. Christine is very creative, but she's not a photographer. So Meri does not have great pictures. Why are they picking on Christine? Because Janelle is also in this picture. Why didn't they ask Janelle to take pictures if they think Christine's so horrible? And Kody says Christine always sabotages Meri's pictures, and they love to make fun of Christine. And I really think that Meri just likes to complain. They're upset because Christine's trying to get the background of the picture and not just the people. And here's the thing, you're taking pictures because you're in Central Park. And why don't you want a part of Central Park in your pictures? That just makes no sense. You're getting mad at her because she has too much background. What's the point of taking pictures? You could just be taking pictures in your backyard if you wanted to do it that way. It shows them flying home, and there's this scene where Robyn is getting her luggage off the carousel, and she looks pissed. I took a picture of it for YouTube, but she looks pissed. She's having to get her own luggage off the carousel, which is what I would like to believe is the reason she's so pissed. But then it shows her walking out of the airport, and Kody is now carrying her luggage out, and everyone else is carrying their own luggage. And it shows them talking to the teenagers, and they're concerned about the community accepting them. And it says that they told Madison not to look at the internet, but she says, yeah, I looked at the internet. And Kody says, yeah, I told him not to read the blogs. The blogs are not safe to read. And he's got hooded eyes. He does this hooded eyes and low voice, which is annoying. He says sometimes when you read opinions and they're not positive, it gets under your skin and they're not safe. And Leon is hugging Meri because they did have a really good relationship back then. And then it flashes to Meredith back on the Today Show, and she's talking about how the Brown family is now under investigation. And it gives a statement from the Attorney General's office, and he's saying, we intend to investigate, see where that leads us. Once that's done, we will forward that on to the county attorney. And it shows Robyn sitting at her counter, And in the background is her fish tank. And it's a huge fish tank, but there's only like 4 inches of water in there. And there's one little fish in that 4 inches of water. And I was like, y'all can't give that fish some more water. That bugged me. I'll take a picture of that and show y'all, but that bugged me. Give that fish some more water. Good Lord. Savannah's holding Truly. Savannah's sitting in a little recliner and she's holding Truly, and Savannah's asking for Truly's blanket. It's cute, cute. And they're looking out Christine's basement window, and there's photographers on the lawn, and there's a guy that walks by. And so Meri comes up with a plan to divert the photographers because the kids are about to get off the bus and they don't want the photographers taking pictures of the kids. And she says, McKelty, we're going to go ride. And they get into Meri's car and drive off, and the photographers follow her. They get the kids together and they do like a safety meeting, which is a good idea. I think that's a good idea. They say you're now on TV. Everybody's going to know your name. So if somebody calls out your name, you need to realize that everybody knows your name now. It's not because they know you. So don't trust anybody unless they're family. And Madison says, well, somebody asked her today if Dad was going to jail. They ask all the wives, they say, if you were to come out again, would you do it again? And Meri says yes. Janelle says yes. Robyn says yes. And Christine says, I don't know. I don't know. The whole thing about they're now under investigation, it's like you went on national TV and said that you're breaking the law. Of course, you're under investigation. It's kind of like, it reminds me of like if you're in junior high and you go and you tell the teacher that there's some girls smoking in the bathroom, and the teacher's like, crap, why'd you tell me that? I don't care. But now because you've told me there's girls smoking in the bathroom, I've got to go bust the girls smoking in the bathroom. You know, I didn't care, but now I got to because you said something. So they're just flaunting it that they're doing this when 90,000 other couples in Utah are doing it. But now they have to because they done gone on TV and said, here we are. So how would they look if they didn't go investigate it? What they're doing, they said they're going to look for negligence and abuse. So I don't know why they're so shocked that they're now under investigation. What did they think was going to happen? If you went on TV and you said, yeah, I robbed a bank last week. Yeah, that happened. Don't you think the police would knock on your door and go, let's talk about you robbing this bank? Like, what did you think was going to happen? But it shows Robyn crying here, and she's crying because Meri's crying. But anyway, so that is the end of that episode. I do enjoy covering season 2 because this is the time when I was watching this and I was like, oh, this is a neat family. These kids are so cute. They should just leave these people alone, because you can kind of see that there's some good going on. Kody kind of is a good dad. Robyn's not that lame, you know? You can see all the love between Christine and all the kids, and that scene between Janelle and Gabe. It was so authentic and so sweet. This is why we fell in love with this family. But anyway, so that's the end of that episode. And this is when we come up with a tell-all question. This is 2 questions. Are y'all now making a big issue about Christine making breakfast because everybody got upset about Logan being parentified? Was that one of the factors in the fact that Christine is now in charge of making breakfast for Janelle's kid? Did that come into play somewhere? And since we now know how Robyn feels about not being in the big house, why don't you and Meri trade? Why don't you and Meri trade? I don't understand why that's not something that could be done. And Robyn's kids can be in the house and they can be included and be integrated with all the other kids, and Meri can have her own place and she won't have to worry about people coming in and out of her house. Why don't y'all just trade and just see what Robyn says? And I mean, what if we said, hey, we got a bunch of people together. We're gonna trade y'all out. We're gonna move y'all back and forth. See how you feel. Since you're so upset, we're gonna do that. I wonder what Robyn would say. She'd be like, no, I don't want to live with them people. But that's it for that episode. And I appreciate y'all listening to me. That's it for today. If you like my podcast, please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to reach me, you can always reach me at redflagrewatch@gmail.com. Thank you for joining me today. See you next time. What did one hat say to another hat? What did one hat say to the other hat? You stay there. I'll go on ahead. Why did the coffee file a police report? Why did the coffee file a police report? It got mugged. You're welcome. See you next time.